Hi guys! So welcome back to my channel. Ano ba magandang intro? Dapat may magandang intro parang Mimio. Jajaya! Hi Mimi! Jajaya! Yan, di ba? Copyright infringement from Mimio. So, thank you guys for your continued support, for subscribing to my channel, and for viewing my videos kahit na walang kasensense yung ibang ginagawa natin dito. Salamat pa rin for supporting my passion for vlogging, di ba? If you're new here, click the subscribe button, click it, and be updated for fresh content, di ba? Sana all fresh. So, for today, I am proud to announce that I am introducing a new segment on my channel. So, meron po tayong new segment. It will be called JUSTalks. Yan, JUSTalks. Yan, hindi ka naging text. Just talk. So, unlike Tuesdays, walang kantahang magaganap. And the waves are flooding the shore, and I can't find my way home anymore. That's when I... Charot. Wala talaga. Walang kantahang magaganap. Tila ko'y nakalimutan. Charot. Promise, wala talaga. Isa lang pwede. Dito sa JUSTalks, usap-usap lang tayo. I'll try to share ideas or share whatever I can base dun sa topic na pag-uusapan natin. Because here in JUSTalks, we share ideas that matter. So, for the first episode of my JUSTalks, I'll be answering some questions from my students in literature. So yon, of course, we are in the new normal because of COVID-19 pandemic, and in as much as we want to conduct real-time discussion with our students, minsan hindi kaya kasi nga, of course, most of our students could not actually access the internet. So, yun, as a solution, instead of synchronous learning, we'll be making it more asynchronous by providing content for them na pwede nilang panoorin later on pag medyo stable na ang kanilang connection. Yan. Pandagdag ko na rin. Pandagdag subscribers o views. Baka naman. Yun. Now, for the information of the many, when we say synchronous learning, this is a kind of learning that happens at the same time for the teacher and the student. So, there's a real-time interaction between them. So, it can happen offline through the traditional face-to-face classes. It can also be conducted online through different online modalities like video conferencing in different platforms like Google Meet and Zoom. Now, on the other hand, asynchronous learning, there is no real-time discussion, meaning the content or the material is made available for students for later consumption. So, parang pwede tayong magbigay ng mga videos or mga lectures sa mga bata na pwede nilang pag-aralan later on. So, it's more individualized for that matter. Example of asynchronous is yung ginagawa ngayon ng university namin, the modular approach. So, parang students learn at their own pace. First question is, what is literature? Well, literature broadly and traditionally refers to any written or oral work that are specifically categorized as a form of art. So an example would be, we have poetry, we have prose fiction, we have drama, we have essays, and the like. And these are categorically in contrast with academic writing or with technical writing. A more formalist definition would say that literature foregrounds the poetic effects. So it is the literariness of literature that distinguishes it from other forms of writing and from ordinary speech. So for instance, alam nating poetry to kasi nga the structure is iba yung form. Hindi siya yung normal na pananalita, hindi siya normal na pagsulat. So there's sound in it, there's rhythm, there's the use of figurative language. So these elements, the sound, the language, and other factors set poetry, for example, from other forms of writing or from other forms of discourses. But these definitions for me are very traditional. So parang hindi na lang kasi written ang pinag-uusapan natin dito. So parang with the emergence of many schools of literary thoughts and of course with cultural studies, we are taking literature to broader discussion or perspective. So parang literature could be any text. Pwede siyang kahit anong text. Text, alam mo yan. And as much as literary theory is concerned, a text is any object that can be read. So it could be poetry, it could be graphic arts, it could be traffic signs, or even the arrangement of buildings on a city block. It could also be fashion. So parang napakalawak. So this is a set of cohesive signs that transmit some kind of message. This set of signs are considered in terms of their conveyed content rather than their form or structure or the medium in which they are represented. What is the purpose of literature? So this calls for a very broad answer, di ba? Kasi for me, there's no definite or ultimate purpose of literature. It is, in fact, very subjective. For me, it could be an avenue for self-expression. For some, it could be for aesthetics. For some people, it is for professional growth or development. For very few, it is more of a social-political agenda. So, somewhere there or in between, you'll find yourself. You'll see the purpose of literature. There an evolution of literature. Yes, of course, meron, di ba, Charmander muna, before naging Charmeleon, before naging Charizard. Kidding aside, yes, meron of course. Hindi naman siya bigla na lang lumitaw out of nowhere. It is a product actually of historical development, or it is, in fact, historical development itself. So parang it varies nga lang from culture to culture. So parang each culture has literature to share, how this literature came into existence, and how this literature evolved through time. Hirap. Ang hirap mag-pretend na matalino tayo. So yun. So very pageant. So thank you for that very wonderful question. Charot. Wala naman akong favorite talaga because I read a variety of authors from a wide array of genres available. Pero siguro yung laman ng puso ko kayo. Laman ng puso, siguro dalawa. Number one, we only accept the love we think we deserve. That's from Praise of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. So di ba? If we are loved less than what we can give, nakukulangan tayo. If naman nasosobra, nasasakal tayo, di ba? So we can accept either of the two. Doon lang tayo sakto. Doon sa kung anong deserve natin. Yun lang. Then pangalawa siguro, everyone has a moment in history which belongs particularly to him. That's from a separate piece by John Knowles. John Knowles, kapatid ni Beyonce Knowles. You're the one I love, you're the one I need. It holds so much water eh. It tells people that lahat tayo may time to shine. Lahat tayo may pagkakataong kuminang. Hindi nga lang tayo sabay-sabay. So, we have to wait for that perfect moment for us. Na naka-destined for us. Yun. Siguro yung dalawa. Pero marami pa. Where does meaning reside on a text? So, permanent or present resident? Depende sa context. Kung theories ang pag-uusapan, siguro the new critics would say that meaning reside on the text itself. So we have to employ close reading para makuha natin yung meaning ng literary piece or ng text na pinag-aaralan natin. But the transactional theories would say that meaning occurs as a result of a transaction between the reader and the text. So parang the reader makes sense of what he or she reads. So iba-ibang reader, iba-ibang interpretation. So may mali bang interpretation? For me, yes. Or contrary dun sa notion na walang maling interpretation, for me meron. Kasi di ba, the interpretation must be supported by pieces of evidence from the text. itself, or maybe from outside factors like maybe author's biography, a social milieu when the text was written. Kasi kung wala ito, kung walang piece of evidence to support the claim, saan nanggaling interpretation? Diba? So parang, though we have subjective judgment towards a text, still, our interpretation must be supported by evidence. When will my reflection? Charot. For me, it remains a theory. Diba? Kasi unless the author categorically said that it is a reflection or representation of my life, we can say that. But even that disclaimer kasi is fallible. Diba? To what extent does this or does the work reflect the author's life? You remember that, or maybe for me, creative writing, or in creative writing, we could not achieve absolute realism. So kahit anong gawin natin, hindi natin maiiwasang maging exaggerated minsan. Sometimes we have to become too poetic para ma-achieve yung literary effect na gusto natin. So, di ba? So parang maybe it could reflect a piece but not the totality of the author's life. Is it possible to write about something you haven't experienced? For me, it's a yes. Well, it helps when you are rich in experience. Parang the authenticity of the narratives and descriptions, mararamdaman mo talaga as a reader dun sa work. Pero, at some point, posible din talaga that you write something, or write about something na completely wala kang nag-experience o wala kang basis kung paano mo siya susulat. Kasi diba in creative writing, parang minsan kailangan mong mag-develop ng anti-social skills. Diba gossiping creatively, parang chinichismis mo yung kwentong narinig mo sa kapitbahay, yung kwentong narinig mo nung may nakasabayan ka sa bus, sa restroom, or sa isang restaurant. We try to fabricate or to represent these experiences of other people into work of fiction. Diba? So parang, yes, feel ko posible talaga na mag-create ka ng isang mundo o ng isang kwento na hindi mo pa naranasan. We can really argue on experience na ni J.K. Rowling, ang Hogwarts, na experience na ba ni J.R.R. Tolkien ang Middle-earth, kung experience na ba ni Rick Riordan ang Camp Half-Blood, diba? So, most of the time, the works of our fiction writers are really just mere figment of their imagination. What is the difference between literary theory and literary criticism? Oh, very, very good question. This needs a very extensive discussion. To make things simpler, when you say literary theory, this refers to the wide array of methods we use to analyze a text. So parang an example of this would be the Russian formalism, we have Marxism, feminism, psychoanalysis, we also have cultural materialism, and among others. On the other hand, when we say literary criticism, this refers to the practical application of these methods in analyzing a text. So yun, so parang literary theory, the method, literary criticism is the practical application. Do you need to become a master of language so you can be good in literary production and literary reading or criticism? Yes, for me, it helps if you have a good command of the language kasi ba it's literary production. So how can you create something if you're not equipped with the necessary skills to make one? Diba? So parang ideas are better expressed when our structures are accurate. For literary reading or criticism, yes, still, kasi nga, how can you comprehend something or how can you comprehend the text if you're not able to understand the language used in the text? But hindi naman siya master parang hindi naman kailangan master of language. Medyo overwhelming kasi yung word na master. So, siguro when knowledgeable ka lang, you have knowledge of that language, you have good command of the language, and you know how to navigate the structures of that language. And what are your common struggles in teaching literature? Siguro po, teaching for like 5 years now, the most common problem na na-encounter ko is that how do I get my student read a literary piece? So, di ba, especially if you encounter the canon works or the canon pieces that are usually lengthy or long. So, parang ang hirap i-require, better yet, i-motivate yung mga bata na magbasa. So, parang a challenge in me or in my part is to become strategic kung paano ko nga i-allow or kung paano ko i-encourage yung mga bata na magbasa. So another thing is when students criticize or analyze a literary piece in a very flat or very static manner na parang walang progression, kumbaga. So parang nasanay sila na they critique or they analyze the character, the setting, the plot, the theme. So parang, well, wala nang masama if we let them analyze these elements of literature. Pero siguro, one way or the other, at some point, siguro kailangan mag-progress din, more in-depth yung analysis ng mga bata. So parang ang hirap na kahit no matter how much you try to introduce them to other ways of criticizing a text, no matter how much you want to or how much you try to introduce them to other theories in analyzing a text, nag-stick pa rin sila doon sa nakasanayan nila. So mahirap sa part na yun. Alright guys, I hope nasagutan ko or na-clarify ko yung ibang question. Baka naguluhan kayo sa explanation ko. Pero yon, for more videos, for more of this Just Talks, please subscribe to my channel. And salamat guys. Marami pa tayong pag-uusapan through the course of this channel or this vlogging journey. I hope mas lumalim pa yung pwede natin pag-usapan sa channel ko. So, if you want to request for some topics, pwede kayong mag-leave ng comment dun sa comment section. So, i-like nyo na rin yung video na to. Pakiusap, guys. Pakiusap. Yun, salamat po and have a nice day. I keep dancing on my own. Tala, tala.